So Tony Bathel will be our timekeeper, assisted by Lynn Jones, our Voter Services Director. The format for tonight will be as follows. We'll begin with the candidates for County Clerk, then we'll hear a discussion of the proposed county charter amendments, followed by the council candidates. For both groups of candidates, we'll follow the ballot order. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an introductory statement, followed by time for questions and answers, after which they'll be given another minute for a closing statement. During the question and answer periods, we'll take questions from the floor, and the students will be circulating with mics. You'll have 30 seconds to pose a question. Just one question at a time, please. No double questions, and no statements. The questions must be addressed to all of the candidates in the group. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute to answer. The candidates will please speak to the audience, not to each other, and refrain from personal attacks. I don't think that's a problem this time, but some years are more difficult than others. I ask the audience to hold your applause for each group until the end of the closing statements. Please show your respect for this process and the candidates by behaving courteously. So we'll begin with the candidates for County Clerk, Nathan Helm and Sharon Stover. Nathan's statement is first, because he's first on the ballot. So if you have
Good. My name is Nathan Yelm. I am a computer scientist working at the Los Alamos National Lab. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in computer science. And right now I'm also working on a PhD. A PhD. I'm running for county clerk because I see the county clerk's office as a place in Los Alamos County where someone with my background can have the most impact for a number of reasons. And one of the first reasons is kind of ensuring the security of elections and helping the county make the proper choices as time goes on about new voting machines, making sure the choices for machines, the machines are trustable, that we won't have any problems with any of the systems failing is another big thing, because you have a precinct that's busy, the system fails, that's a huge problem. And in general right now our systems are actually very good, and the policies and the way we use these machines actually work very well. And I do want to keep it going in that direction. Another thing that I'd like to be able to do is help modernize the information requests given to the county clerk's office, so they're not spending all their time handling Freedom of Information Act requests. And I feel like with my background I can help move the office in that direction. That's about it.
Good evening, my name is Sharon Stover. I'd like to thank the League for hosting this first forum for everyone in the community. I'm running for County Clerk. In April of next year, I will have been a resident of White Rock for 30 years and have been involved in county government as well as community activities during that time. I grew up in the Milwaukee Valley, so I have a good understanding of why we are special. I am currently on the County Council. The County Clerk is responsible for all the filing and recording of ordinances and resolutions, as well as the custodian for the petitions initiated by our citizens. The clerk manages marriage licenses, you have to go register, registers voters, administers the elections, and also serves as clerk for the probate judge. In short, I'm looking forward to the opportunity of these past 4 years, what council documents have been passed, and I've assigned as chair to now follow through on those documents and handling them. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I will commit to attend trainings, and I would also like to continue to be our county's representative on a group called Mexico Association of Counties. Currently, I'm the treasurer of that group, and I would like to continue to serve. The incoming president has asked me to serve as treasurer again. The Mexico Clerks affiliate, which represents all 33 counties in this legislative session, will have 7 resolutions. And I would continue to support those by the county as well as NMAC. My strength that I think I bring to the office is that I have an understanding of county government, and I've made a lot of connections throughout the state that I think present a good face for Los Alamos. I will look at the office with fresh eyes and talk to our stakeholders, our citizens, and find out how better we can serve, the clerk's office can serve you. And thank you for your consideration and your vote.
Thank you. The first question comes from the league. Ms. Stover will answer first. The Brennan Center for Justice recommends that private citizens not be allowed to challenge voters at the polls on election day. Election officials, of course, could challenge voters with cause. How do you feel about the fact that New Mexico allows private citizens to challenge voters inside the polls on election day?
That was an earful, and I didn't get the first part of the question. I apologize.
Okay. The Brennan Center for Justice recommends that private citizens not be allowed to challenge voters at the polls on election day. In New Mexico, voters are allowed to challenge, and citizens are allowed to challenge voters.
Well, I think there's a regulation that within so many feet you cannot approach a voting center of voting, and I've seen where people can campaign outside of that area. I've never been, in my years of voting, have never been approached to be challenged by anyone. So I guess I would continue to support the same system that we currently use here.
So the private citizens, you mean like the election judges themselves, right? Really? Yeah. Well, that's something that this county probably doesn't have much control over, but I would say that the county should probably push on the state to change that so that private citizens can't challenge the voters. I don't think that's a good idea.
Are there other questions? No questions for County Clerk?
I can say
Priscilla's done.
Okay, listen. I want to know if you agree with same-day voting. This tends to be a large issue, but in essence, we actually already have it. Because on October 9th, you can go vote and you can go register to vote. But there's still a big brouhaha about it, so I just wondered what your feelings were about that. I know you're not.
Well, same-day voting, I think, is a great idea. The only issue there, of course, is determining that the person who's voting is legal to vote in that county. Traditionally in that precinct, but that's changed a little bit. And so I support the idea of doing it provisionally if they register the same day. But I don't know how it's working with the early voting and registering next Tuesday and the same time as voting. But as long as it can be determined that they are eligible to register to vote, their vote should be counted, even though it's the same day.
Thank you. So there's registration closes on October 9th. And so once that closes, absentee voting starts October 9th. and then mass voting, absentee, what they're calling absentee voting begins October 20th. But we have now these 3 convenient voting centers that just got approved. This is the first time we used them during the primary election, where I, as a citizen living in White Rock, could come up to Los Alamos and vote. In fact, I did because it was timely. But in any case, so this same-day voting, I think we can vote. It's much more convenient than it was in the past. And I think the clerk's office has even seen an increase in people doing quite a bit of the early voting, which is like the absentee. So, yes, I would support.
Are there other questions?
Yes, I would just like to inquire whether you feel the clerk's job should be part-time or full-time?
I'll go first, yeah. That's need to learn what the office is about. That's why go in it with fresh eyes and see. Whoever gets elected is pretty much just a placeholder, to be honest, these next 4 years. That was an issue that the CRC is dealing with and will come up again that they will address. There's different thoughts. I've talked to different clerks who think it should be a part-time, some think it should be a full-time. So that will go through the charter process. And so until that happens, we'll wait and see.
I'd have to say the exact same thing. I mean, it's something that I'd have to really see how the office works and kind of see how maybe it can be changed and improved, whether that requires a full-time clerk or whether the current part-time position is adequate. So, if I get elected and get to serve the county as county clerk, I will be prepared to make that assessment and recommend to the county council what should be done going forward.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Some states have nonpartisan county clerks, and some do not. New Mexico versus, I guess it's in our Constitution, that the county clerk's position should be partisan. I just wondered how you felt about that. I mean, I think it would take a constitutional amendment to change it, but it is something that's inspired some controversy, so I'd love to know how you felt about it.
I'm not completely comfortable with the idea, just like I'm not completely comfortable with the idea of the Secretary of State, who's kind of the head who runs all the election in the state, is a partisan position. And it's hard to say whether, I mean, in some instances it probably could be a problem, but I don't see in New Mexico there being too big of a problem. But I don't know beyond that. So.
So Becky, I guess I wasn't really aware in statewide of the controversy. It was more national.
I think it's actually our charter. John could probably tell us. Rather than the state constitution. That makes
No, it's not in the charter.
It's not our county charter. Sorry, so I should pass along erroneous information.
In any case, I wasn't aware that it was a concern. I haven't heard of anything. And so it seems like the system has been working fine to date. Sorry about
Okay, we have time now for 1-minute closing statements. Begin with you, Sharon.
I'd just like to thank the citizens of Los Alamos. I think we have a very educated electorate that comes out to vote. We have a high 84%, which tells us our citizens are engaged. And I think the county clerk's office, the integrity of that office remains high, and I would hope to continue that. And so I would just ask for your support. Thank you.
I'd first like to start off by thanking the Los Alamos League of Women Voters for having us out here today and letting us talk to you. And I'd like to ask for your support to help me, help me serve the county as the county clerk and do what I can to make this office something that serves the citizens better. And I really would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. I'd like John Hopkins and Robert Pollack to come up, please. Third person.
That's your greatest accomplishment.
John Hopkins was the chair of the Charter Review Committee. He will have 15 minutes to introduce the charter amendments and explain how to move forward. Robert Pollack, president of LAWRE, the Los Alamos Governmental Review Initiative, will then have 15 minutes to explain why he opposes the amendments. Following the two presentations, we'll have 10 minutes for questions and answers. So, begin with John.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm going to briefly explain our rationale and recommendations regarding the initiative, referendum, recall, and charter amendment processes. These are the 4 charter amendments on the November ballot. First, I want to turn to the rationale. I want to focus my remarks on what I view as the main points, the issues of checks and balances. We have a representative form of government with a county council elected to be the top legislative body in the community. However, citizens should have an ultimate safety valve to address either council inaction or council action seriously at odds with the wishes of the community. This safety valve takes the form of a petition signed by at least a minimum number of voters to require council to have an election on the issue. This is called direct legislation or direct democracy and provides the checks and balances. This option is a safety valve and not a routine method for objecting to council decisions. This is where balance comes in. It involves a balance between the citizens' right to direct legislation and council's responsibilities as the top legislative body as articulated in state law. In short, direct legislation should not be too easy and it should not be too hard. Making the petition process too easy results in all checks and no balance. Making the petition process too hard results in no checks and no balance. I'll talk about our recommendations for the proper balance in a few moments. But next, note that recall is really a moot point. We're bound by the state constitution to follow the law as it pertains to counties. This is the view of our attorneys and of the New Mexico Attorney General. All we're doing here is making our charter consistent with state law. Now I want to talk a little bit about the objectives regarding the November ballot and the question of log rolling. Remember, log rolling is where 2 or more unrelated subjects are combined into a single question. This is not allowed. Now I want to emphasize that council's proposed amendments do not constitute log rolling. And I'll explain why. The first thing to note is the whereas language in each of the council's ordinances that says, and I quote, "Whereas council's intent is to replace all parts of the existing charter pertaining to initiative, with a single unified system embodied within individual sections of the charter, unquote. This applies equally to the other three amendments. Just replace initiative with referendum, recall, or charter amendments. The existing charter is fractured, with various essential provisions appearing in scattered sections, many of which are ambiguous. The CRC, Charter Review Committee, and Council wanted to combine, consolidate, and clarify all those provisions relating to each procedure. This is a key point. Next, note again the log-rolling prohibition language, stating in a bit more detail that amendments or subjects should be separated if they are not dependent upon each other, and there is no direct, necessary, or logical connection between the operations of each. All of the proposed amendments for each procedure are directly and logically connected to each other. This type of unified procedure and ballot measure is absolutely consistent with that which was used in the constitutional amendment for judicial reform that was upheld by the New Mexico Supreme Court Chavez case, wherein the court stated that the proposed changes, and I'll quote from the Supreme Court decision, were germane to the overarching theme of judicial reform. Now I will address the recommended levels of checks and balances. The Charter Review Committee reviewed other New Mexico communities and made recommendations in line with their charters. Theirs, however, are based upon municipal rather than general elections. In most of the New Mexico communities, the turnout in municipal elections is substantially less than for general elections. But that may not be the case for Los Alamos, where the turnout for the municipal elections of councilors might well be high. No one knows the answer to this. In any case, I think that the interest in local issues is higher in Los Alamos than in most or all of the other communities of the state. But also, the other communities often have a much higher bar for petitioners to hurdle. For example, we proposed signatures from 15% of the voters in the last general election, while Albuquerque requires signatures from 20% of the voters in the last municipal election. And Santa Fe requires a whopping 33.3% of voters in the last mayoral election, with the additional requirement of 10% from each district. For more details on the other communities, we have a handout at the back called Frequently Asked Questions, and that has the numbers for both Albuquerque and Santa Fe for referendum and initiative. And you can also contact our website, which is listed back there as well, or ask one of our colleagues managing a booth at the farmer's market between now and Election Day. By the way, one of the things I thought I'd mention about the sample ballot, which you find back there, is the reason for the 4 amendments is not because there wasn't room on the ballot. I want to mention a few other details. One objection raised by our opponents is that the proposed amendments listed subjects that are not permitted by the petition process. I would like to point out that the present charter lists the same subjects. There are no new exclusions. We just included the list to save a petitioner time and energy by warning him or her ahead of time away from areas that were not amenable to the petition process. And that was the reason for putting them in the original charter. This in no way further restricts the petitioner. A second complex area involves the legislative or policy subjects and the administrative or operational subjects. In general, legislative subjects are amenable to petitions, while administrative subjects are not, the operational subjects. Once you start building the building, in other words, it's not available for the petition process. Now to shift gears. One letter writer said that if you don't understand it, vote no. That is not the league way. If you don't understand it, just ask. In conclusion, I want to say that I feel strongly that we have proposed 4 charter amendments that constitute substantial improvements over the present charter, and I urge you to vote for all 4. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you to the League for holding this forum and for inviting us to participate. I'd like to take a few moments and address why I am opposed to the 4 charter amendments that are on the ballot. First and foremost, each of the 4 questions that will be before the public involve a large number of complex changes to the entire petition process. First and foremost, as John has mentioned, are changes to the formulas used to calculate how many signatures will be required for a petition and what time frame in which they must be collected. As John did point out, Los Alamos, well first, as John pointed out, these formulas are generally based on the participation in municipal elections. And that Los Alamos, unlike other communities, holds its municipal elections at the same time as a general election. Other communities hold separate municipal elections. Consequently, the voter turnout in Los Alamos is considerably higher than in other places. And yes, it is knowable as to how high it is. What one has to do is contact the clerks of the various other communities and simply inquire as to what the voter participation rates are like in their elections. I have done this. In Los Alamos, a typical average election participation rate about 75%. I polled about 8 other communities here, and the result was the highest of those other 8 communities was only 25%. Sometimes it was down as low as 10%. This therefore introduces a very large discrepancy between Los Alamos and the other communities. To carry that a little further, let's consider a few comparisons. Currently, right now in Albuquerque, there is on the ballot, or will be on the ballot, an initiative on the minimum wage. That initiative required 12,000 signatures to be collected. Albuquerque has 27 times more voters than Los Alamos does. It also allows only 1/3 as much time to collect the signatures. So to get what would be the corresponding number in Los Alamos, we would take the 12,000 and divide it by 9. You get something around 1,300, 1,350 signatures. Under the current rule, in Los Alamos, you need either 1,300 signatures or about 1,600 signatures, depending on which election is used. If the new formula is adopted, then you would not divide by 9, you'd have to divide by 18, because the time period in which Los Alamos citizens would be allowed to gather the signatures would be cut in half. And so an equivalent number of signatures in Los Alamos would be somewhere around 600 to 700, which is a lot lower than it currently is. So introducing the new change that they're proposing would make Los Alamos substantially more difficult than Albuquerque it is to collect signatures for an initiative petition. If we take a look at the recall and compare with Santa Fe, the proposed change to the Los Alamos County Charter would give us the same formula as Santa Fe does. But Santa Fe only has 25% voter participation compared with our 75%. Consequently, you need about 3 times as many signatures to institute a recall election in Los Alamos as you would in Santa Fe, despite the fact that each district within Santa Fe is about the same size and population of voters as Los Alamos. So again, you would end up in Los Alamos with rules that are much more difficult, much higher thresholds than you would anywhere else. With regard to the addition of new subjects, a number are carried over from the previous charter, indeed, and some new ones are added. However, there is a question as to how to interpret those new topics. For instance, one of the things that is added is the amendments to a zoning map. Now, a specific amendment to change spot A to spot B would be an administrative change, and that would be precluded, as John has explained. However, one could also interpret the way that it's being added as to include any legislation that discusses how zoning map amendments are to be changed. That is more of a legislative issue. Now, I picked the zoning map amendments because about 5 or 6 years ago, down in Hobbs, New Mexico, a referendum was held on their zoning ordinance. All 100 pages was put up for a up or down vote by the citizens because some citizens went out and collected a sufficient number of signatures to happen. Ultimately, the measure was approved that the referendum failed, so the ordinance did go into effect. There are a number of other small changes that are being introduced in here, and I'd like to take a few minutes to elucidate them. First of all, our current charter allows for a grace period following the initial period for collecting signatures. The reason for this grace period is to allow the county clerk to catch up on counting the signatures to figure out where we are, and then if not enough signatures have been collected, the petitioner is given 10 more days to try and close the gap. The proposed amendments would eliminate this grace period from each of the process. This has some complications because what they try to introduce in its stead is that the county clerk is supposed to report periodically on the progress of validating the signatures. However, if the county clerk should fall behind, and that can happen during a busy time, if you're collecting signatures, say, around now, while there's an election being prepared for, the petitioner is left with no recourse. The original grace period is superior in that it gives the county clerk the time to get the job done, and then the clock on the grace period only starts after the county clerk has been able to catch up. Another change that's included in these amendments is that the specifications for the time periods at which to hold the elections are removed. So the petitioners and even the people in the county government are left trying to sort through state law to figure out when an election can be held. When currently we actually specify in the charter that an election should be held within so many days after the certification. There also is introduced a new rule for initiatives that prohibits failed petitions for 1 year. Now that, on the surface, seems like a good idea, that if a petition fails to get enough signatures, that you should have to take a time off before trying again. However, if, say, in the first few days of a petition, a flaw is discovered, it's not possible then to stop the old petition and start a new one. The clerk would be prohibited from issuing a new petition based on the wording that's in the new proposed amendments. Another change on referendums is that in the current charter, referendums are allowed not only on ordinances or the whole ordinances, but on parts of ordinances as well as resolutions. These latter two are eliminated in the new proposals. Finally, we come to the final question of the four, the question on charter amendments. This is a particularly confusing question in that it attempts to lock the process of charter amending the charter to that of conducting an initiative petition. However, voters will be confronted with the question of what is going to be the process for an initiative petition. Well, they won't know at the time they're voting because that's the subject of the first question, and so it will depend on the result there. Also contained within the same question is the new rule about single subjects. And on the one hand, it's actually a very nice rule in that instead of saying that questions that are found to have multiple subjects are automatically discarded, it instead allows them to be separated and then still put to the voters. However, the question comes, who is going to do that separating and who gets to decide whether or not it's multiple subjects or not? It's left very unclear for the voter to have to guess how that is going to work. And it seems a little strange to add this brand new rule about single subjects tied in with this changes in the rules in the way of charter amendment. So if I take a look at these proposals from another viewpoint, I ask myself, what does the average voter get if they were to adopt all of these? Personally, I don't see much of a benefit to the average voter. What I do see as a result is a county council that is further removed, further isolated, further insulated from the input of the citizens that it represents. Back in 1967, there was a proposed charter put to the voters, and it had tougher rules for initiative, referendum, and recall. It was defeated by the voters, and a new charter with these current rules was put out in 1968. I hope that we will continue with what we have currently. I can speak from personal experience that we have a large, high requirements as it stands right now. We don't need to make them astronomical. And as one more point in my discussions with the city clerk of Santa Fe, I asked, has anybody ever done a petition in Santa Fe? The answer is no. So I don't think we want to make our requirements even higher than what they have in Santa Fe. Thank you very much.
Are there questions for the, well, if you
I
ask
won't
a
need
question,
that.
we'll ask both John and Robert to respond. Yes.
TV guy needs to go ahead. My name is Greg White, and I'm going to tell you how I see it, and then I'd like the person representing the Charter Committee to tell me why I'm wrong. First off, this ain't Albuquerque, ain't Santa Fe. We don't give a crap what we do down there. That's their problem. Second thing
Excuse
is,
me, I'd like to remind you, you have 30 seconds.
second thing is, the quotes in the newspaper is extremely confusing, and this thing ain't much better, and we're not going to have much chance to read anything until the day we vote, according to what was in the newspaper.
I'm sorry, you have to...
And this is definitely log rolling, because definitely taking different
you need to
things like the
stop,
number of days
sir.
that you allow for the petition to be
You
circulated,
need to stop.
and combining it with things like not being able to recirculate a petition again for 12 months.
Please,
And then, on top of all that,
please hand over the mic.
if there isn't something that's wrong with people having enough time to circulate a
Robert, you wanna
petition,
answer?
or needing more signatures, what's the county got a problem with that? to
Okay,
start
please
with?
be seated, sir. I'm sorry.
Nothing like free speech.
That sounded just like a statement to me. I don't know what the question was.
Thank
Well, what
Is there
problem
an
does the county
actual
have
question,
with
please?
allowing people 180 days instead of 90, or 10% signature instead of 15, unless they're trying to squash people doing something?
I have a mic and I have a question, which is, it seems that Los Alamos County looks at process constantly and not at results. So I'd like both of you to tell us, will the county be a more vibrant place in 10 years if your proposals go through?
I'm not really sure that any of our recommendations make Los Alamos a more vibrant place. But ask me again in 10 years and I'll let you know.
My fear is that if these proposals are adopted, Los Alamos will become a less vibrant place.
This is obviously a waste of time. There's no
Is
such
there
thing
another
as freedom of
question?
speech with the League of Women Voters.
On the proposed amendments, I'm curious if each can stand effectively by itself without passage of the others. So as stated another way, if one passes, not the other three, is it effectively hobbled or create more confusion than we have?
No, I think that's to me. It's referred to the proposed ones. I want to stand up so I can see you and you can see me. The reason this was so difficult to do was that when the charter, our present charter, was first put together, there are common parts to each of the initiative, referendum, recall, charter amendment processes, and those common pieces were taken out and put in another section of the charter, and then only those unique things were put in separate sections. And that made it very difficult to do. Today, the way it is proposed in the present recommended charter amendments, each one stands separately, each one can be modified separately, they're all on their own. So it's much better from that standpoint.
I haven't done a thorough analysis of that question. I suspect that John is correct and that they would stand alone. They would hold together if one is put in and another is not. However, I would like to say that an alternative approach that could have been employed would have been to have done the rewrites to improve the clarity without changing any of the requirements. Leave the 180 days in for the time period for initiative. Leave the 50%, the 10% rather, in for the referendum. You could have then justifiably put it all down as a single question, even if you had done it across all 4 topics. Then come back at a later date and make the changes or propose changes on the percentages and the other rules. That would have been a much cleaner, simpler process for the voter to understand.
Other questions? Yes.
I appreciate your work on the charter committee because I've always thought that it needed work. And, but like this gentleman over here, I'm a little confused. And John used a lot of your time to talk about log rolling, and that's not what I'm concerned about finding out tonight. I more want to know why you think this is good for our community. I understand the opposite side, but I'd like to hear you advocate for your side.
Well, Robert pointed out that... Hello? Hello? I was silenced. The issue of why is this better for the community? Rob pointed out that Santa Fe had no charter, or excuse me, no petitions. We've had 10 in the last 4 years. I think that it is, it makes it more difficult for the whole community to operate smoothly with the present charter system, and I think it actually is used just to disagree with council, and I don't think that's the safety valve that it was intended to have.
I would simply respond that I don't believe all of these are simply disagreements with council, that they do represent a fundamental desire on the part of people to want to change things. And that's the only explanation I can come up with why 2,000 people were willing to sign the first two petitions.
There was another question. There was a question in the back there. Sarah, would you?
I was just wondering on the first issue that you brought up, you said that there were half the number of voters and half the amount of time. And so it seems, and you said that would make it more difficult for the petition, and it seems like it's kind of the same to me, but maybe I didn't understand what you said. This was for Robert.
The proposed change on initiatives is to cut the time in half but keep the same number of signatures required. Therefore, you have to collect twice as many signatures per day on average to get a petition through. In referendum, what's being changed is the percentage of voters that have to sign the petition. That's going up by 50%. So perhaps I slid those two things together and came across the same that way. But the bottom line is that all four questions result in either an increase in the number of signatures required or a reduction in the amount of time to get the signatures, or in the case of recall, both.
Okay, thank you.
Is there another question? All right, thank you very much. It was very helpful, I think. Council candidates, please come up. I want to say regarding the voter's guide, we did not include pros and cons for the charter amendments because the county was putting together a brochure. And as I said before, there are copies of the brochure in the anteroom, and it's going to be mailed out to residents. Okay, we're going to follow the ballot order. We'll begin with the 2-minute statements. So we begin with Chief.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this event. I'm Pete Shee. I've lived and worked here since 1986 after serving in the Air Force and going back to school to earn a PhD in physics at UCLA. I've had a satisfying career in X Division at the lab, retiring this April. I'm still a guest scientist, but I'm happy to have more time to devote to my family and community. I've been active in community affairs, such as serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission since 2008. I think I've shown the judgment, patience, stamina, and good humor necessary to make a good county councilor for this town. When I ask people what they think about their county government, they tell me they're concerned about the aggressive and some say extravagant spending being done by the county. At the same time, they want the county to go ahead with needed investments in education, infrastructure, and economic development. Things that will help make our town more inviting to everyone, from single people to families with children to retired people. I've been all of those things in my time here. I think I can help find a balance between these concerns. I'm ready to take the time to look carefully at every detail of what we spend. and give credit, put everything on the table, give credit where we're doing things well, such as Atomic City Transit, and fix the things we're not doing so well, such as getting way too far into final design of building projects before we ask the contractor what those things are going to cost. It always seems it's more than we had estimated. People are in pretty good agreement about priorities: public safety, infrastructure, education, and economic development, followed by improving our recreational amenities. If we focus on communication, prioritization, and fiscal responsibility, we will be able to afford all the important things for our community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Redondo. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and all of you for coming. I grew up in this community. I moved here at the age of 3 in 1983. This is my home, and I really want to make sure that it's a community that thrives and prospers. I did leave the community several times. I left to earn my bachelor's degrees. Also to spend time serving as a volunteer in the Peace Corps in the Environmental Conservation Program in the Republic of Panama. And most recently to earn my master's degree in community and regional planning. I think my planning degree is something that I can most particularly use to help this community. One of the things that I think most important to me is the ability for young people like myself to be able to come back to town and earn a living, and not necessarily work in the lab. This is something that I've tried to do. I've found it fairly difficult. I'm managing to do it, but it's not easy. I also want this place to be a community where people like myself want to stay. People who grew up here often leave and they very seldom come back. And I think that's a shame because we're losing an important part of our community. And I really think that we need to work to make this the sort of place where people like that can stay and want to stay. And I think one of the things that I can do is leverage my planning degree, leverage my knowledge of planning to help us update our zoning codes in particular. They were written in 1968 and haven't really been updated substantially since then. And that's something that I would really like to push if elected to the council so that we can make this a community for everyone, not just a select few. Thank you.
My name is Kristen Henderson, and I am running for one of the 3 seats on County Council. We have lived here 9 years. My husband works at the lab, and I have 2 girls in elementary school that were both born here. I have a law degree from UCLA, and I have both practiced law, and I have also worked in a lot of software startups. Currently here for the last 7 years, I have been an agent at RE/MAX, which I think is a great background because I know all of our neighborhoods and I know a lot of our housing issues, of which they're plentiful. But one of the most important things I have done here, frankly, is be a stay-at-home mom for several years. And probably half of you are thinking, what? And half of you are like, okay, I understand. And I really think that is an important background to bring to this council because it's unfortunate, but the truth is we are losing our families in their 20s, 30s, and 40s at a higher rate than the rest of the state. So one of the other things I've been involved in here is I got very involved in Trinity Site, and I spent as a citizen volunteer, and I went and met with a lot of play groups. I didn't find all of them, but I found a lot of them, and I talked about what Trinity Site was because that's an important issue to them. And I told them about it, but I heard from them a lot about how they felt about the town. And really, in the end, that's why I decided to run, because I think there's a lot of us who feel the same way. We would like to see some progress, but we think all of us need to be included. And unfortunately, I think the families in particular, one, feel like the town's not meeting their needs, but 2, they don't care that it's not meeting their needs. And I don't think that's how we all feel. In the end, I believe that this is a great town, and it could be even better, but we do need to take into account all of us as we move forward and as we make these important decisions. Of course, we have to be fiscally responsible about it, and that's the kind of town we are, and absolutely that's what we need to be. But we do need to think of all of us as we move forward. So I hope you vote for me November 6th. Thank you.
Oh, perfect.
Let me start off by saying what a great looking bunch. Thanks for all being here today. Thanks for letting us talk to you guys today. My name is Mark Clay. I'm a longtime resident of Los Alamos, 30 years, half of it in White Rock, half of it in Los Alamos. I have raised a bunch of children here, still am. I've had kids in every school in the community, so I have a real good practical understanding of the issues on a day-to-day living kind of a basis. I'm also a veteran through Leadership Los Alamos and Leadership New Mexico of understanding the issues from a management and leadership perspective. I've been part of that program, Leadership Los Alamos, for 8 years and have been working with the staff of that to try to help build leaders of tomorrow, some of which are in this room and are all around the county. So now it's my turn to help. Instead of being behind the scenes and helping to provide leadership opportunities for other people, it's for me to take and do what I practiced. I've also been a manager of the laboratory for some 10 years, and I'm more than a manager, I'm a leader. So that's something that you'll have in me. It's more than just a person who can manage the county affairs as part of the council, but who can be a leader, who can set vision and make those things happen that we always want to do but don't seem to be able to do in some cases. So I really look forward to your vote on November 6th, because that's the kind of person you want. You want a person with a combination of practical experience, leadership experience, and also the last thing I'll comment on is I'm a person that does everything from a basis of very strong core values. You'll have a person in me who will base their decisions on integrity, on trust, and on all those things that we hold dear, that you would want a person to have as a backbone for what they decide to do, because I'm representing all of you, and that's why I hope you'll vote for me. Thank you very much.
I'm Vincent Charabelli, and I was humbled and honored 4 years ago to be elected to the Los Alamos County Council. I'm running for re-election to be a common-sense, fiscally conservative voice on the council. I believe that the most important job of an elected official is to look carefully and critically at public spending. And I feel that lavish spending on government buildings, such as the municipal building and the Justice Center, has not addressed the most critical need that our community faces, and which is to attract more young families to live here. And as a county councilor, I have a strong record of opposing excessive spending and demanding that we make every dollar of our public money count. My priorities include helping startup technology companies with county financial assistance so that we can create more jobs here in Los Alamos County and expand our research park and the Entrada Business Park. I'm a champion of our public schools, which are the jewel of our community. And I feel that the county has to take a leading role in identifying new revenue sources for our public schools. And that's why, as county councilor, I introduced an ordinance so that our schools would get 100% of the lease money from the commercial activity on the Trinity site. I feel that we have to develop the 60-acre A19 parcel in White Rock so that new housing and retail options can be created for our citizens through private enterprise. By working together, we can create a county government that listens to its citizens and lives within its means. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Gearens, and I'm running for County Council. I have had the privilege of living in this community, this county, specifically White Rock, for 33 years, and now it's my time, my opportunity to stand up and volunteer to serve. I've been touched, influenced by a distinguished cadre of citizens who have served this community and delivered significant accomplishments, all contributing to the idea of no better place than Los Alamos to work, raise a family, be proud of, and most importantly, live. I emphasize service because that's what it's all about. My motto is, don't yak, give back. These past 3 decades, I have not sat on the sidelines. In the 80s, I served on the Parks and Rec Board. In the 90s, I served on P&Z. During the 2000s, I was elected to the school board. In all cases, I was involved in local government. A precept I was trained growing up, and one that has always been important to me, is living within your means. So living within our means as a county will always be an important consideration for me. My priorities, an advocate for balanced community investments, especially infrastructure revitalization. A proponent of the county's established economic vitality priorities, a supporter of the positive momentum promoting regional relationships and collaborations, and a voice for mutually beneficial collaboration with the schools. I am committed to sustaining the quality of life we enjoy, a safe place to live, quality schools, unique recreational and cultural venues, and a no better place to raise a family. I will be decisive to progress effective government. I will look for and champion practical solutions that responsibly serve to balance our community's expectations for services with available revenues. So most sincerely, I am asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the first question is from the League, and we'll begin with Mr. Gearens. The development contract for Trinity site has been transferred from NADG to Smiths. What is your reaction to this change? And we'll just go down there.
I think this is a positive thing. I believe having the anchor tenant is so important. And Smiths, Kruger's, we knew was going to be the anchor tenant here. We've known for a long time, no one else is coming. We don't have enough rooftops. So we're even too small to have competing groceries. So let's let them go for it. They even said they're not in the development business, but when they have to, they'll do it. So 6 months, 8 months, let's go. Just going to go down.
I agree. I supported the Trinity site development when it first came up, and I still do today. We tried to get some competition for Smiths. At this time, they're the only organization with the financial power and knowledge of the market they have here, which I think they know they have a gold mine, to make an investment. We've made a big investment to make that site ready. It's time for us to get some payoff. They're going to put a lot of money into that. It's going to help the young families. It's going to send revenue to the schools and property tax and increased GRT to the county. So would we have liked something else? Maybe. What we've got is this, and let's take it and go forward.
I voted for the transfer from NADG to Smiths because I feel that this is a positive development that will lead to breaking dirt, finally, on the Trinity site. I don't think there can be any doubt in the minds of the county council or anyone in the community that there's been a desire for more retail in this town, especially among our young moms and our young families. And we need to address that need. It's taken far longer than any of us thought to bring this project about, but I'm committed to seeing it through. And I think that working with Smiths, who has a proven record of dealing with local businesses and renting to local businesses, is very good, because Smiths will be willing to give our local businesses a shot to be present on the Trinity site. And for me, that's very important, and that's one of the reasons why I voted for it.
Could people please stand when they respond? We can't see you from back here. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. I'm in favor of the Trinity site transfer to Smiths. The reason I'm in favor is, there's many reasons, but one, Smiths has a different business model. NADG really had to make their money from the junior sites, and Smiths doesn't have to do that. They know they're going to be making their money on the $25 million they're investing to build it overall, and mostly on their general merchandise and grocery store. So they're still committed to bringing in those junior tenants, but they don't have to get as high of a rent, and there are people interested. They just weren't willing to pay the kind of rent that NADG wanted. I'm not worried about them controlling both sites. I mean, I think really big picture, we haven't had general merchandise here for either 20 or 30 years. I'm not sure, that is before my time, and I think it's kind of scary. What is it going to do to everybody? But I really truly believe it will help us stop our 80% leakage off the hill. Even if we spend 40% of our money up here, that's going to help our local merchandise, and it's absolutely going to help our lifestyle, and it's going to help the lab be able to recruit and economic development to expand. And thank you. I'm in favor.
I'm also in favor. Smiths is the only organization that had the courage to move forward. Of course, they're strongly motivated because they make a lot of money on groceries. They certainly understand two of the retail gaps that we have, gas and groceries. And let's see if they are going to be willing to fill some of the other retail gaps with some of the other stores around it. And I think they will be. It saddened me today, some of you read when Ottawa Station is going to be closing. So if we can have something like Smith's attract things and attract people to come here, let's start there. I mean, we have to start somewhere. And as Steve said earlier, we need to move. So instead of thinking about it and talking about it, it'll just lay fallow forever. So I'm all in favor of doing it. I'm looking forward to what the other communities or the other retail is going to be. And I think it'll be something. And I think it'll be fun, it'll be exciting. And it'll be the beginning of moving forward for economic development in Los Alamos.
Like the rest of our candidates here, I am in favor of the project. Considering especially the fact that once we do get a tenant in there, the rent, a large portion of it will be going to the schools to cover operating costs. And that's something that personally to me is very important. Having gone through the local school system, it's a jewel of our community, and anything we can do to bring more money to them so that they can continue their wonderful and amazing work that they do for our youth is something I'm in support of.
Questions from the floor? Bring the mic.
Hi, I'm glad you're all here. I believe that a vibrant retail community in Los Alamos is impossible as long as the laboratory is renting space downtown. I'd just like to hear your views on that.
I agree. Yes, I agree. I think that having high rents in our downtown area has been a crushing blow for small businesses that are trying to get started. I would like to see new facilities built on the South Mesa so that the laboratory can concentrate its activities there, such as a science complex, where the laboratory would have some of its employees, we could have private companies and university presence, and all of that, those new facilities, would be done on the land on the South Mesa. And to help our small businesses, the new lands that we currently own, the 60-acre A19 site in White Rock, land on DP Road, land that is on the municipal building site, we could use, the county could use that land and lease it or sell it to small businesses so they have a shot to upgrade and improve their business. And that's what I'd like to see happen.
I told what you said directly to Charlie McMillan recently. He even answers his door. I've knocked on a lot of doors and had some interesting things to say. He told me, relax. One of the silver linings of the recent budget cuts at the lab is that they need less space, and they are pulling back. Contractors, it hurts. Some of these contractors are laying people off, but they don't need that space. The county as well, once the municipal building is done, is going to pull a lot of people out of that downtown space, and there will be vacancy. That is an opportunity. It's up to those landlords to cut their prices if they so choose. If not, We will have to move out to the edges of town. That's what the food co-op did. Got a reasonable deal from our now councilor, Rick Reese, and there is a need. It will be met.
Right now, there's 100,000 square feet of empty space in town. So I don't know if that's necessarily one of the big drivers when we just have one of our favorite little businesses, the Ottawa Station, go under. I think a lot of it, vibrancy, is a function of having a major anchor tenant here to stop the leakage. So I think the Smith store, a bigger Smith store with more general merchandise, would be that anchor.
Unfortunately, it takes an act of Congress for the lab to build a new office space on the south side of the bridge. Personally, I think, the high rents, the competition with the lab is a contributing factor to our economic issues. I think there are things that we can do through zoning to incentivize our landlords and incentivize development that can potentially offer lower rents, and that's something I would like to look at. We need to get creative with the ways that we support our local businesses, and that's something that I am really committed to doing.
First, I'll say I'm glad to see you too. The lab is pulling back. It is going to be doing a lot of work along the corridor, the Pirate Corridor. It's got the new complex going to be around the NSSB, so there's going to be a lot of focus there. Steve's right, there's a lot of empty space in Los Alamos. I think there's a lot of empty space at White Rock already. Los Alamos isn't in those spaces right now, the laboratory. So how do we offer incentives to get the owners of some of the existing spaces to spruce them up so people want to take over? I mean, if you talk to Denise, you'll notice that some of our retail space isn't exactly the most beautiful and most desirable there is. So it's going to take some county effort to encourage people to come through the incentives we can offer. So you're right, Los Alamos Laboratory did contribute to where we are, but they just paid what the landlords wanted them to pay. So now they're coming back. So I think the supply and demand will ultimately adjust what's going on there. But I see a future in the spaces here now, so we can use it.
I think we all agree that it's not good for a vibrant downtown to have an office space right on the ground floor. I do think that Los Alamos got stuck in kind of two conflicting curves. One is the lab deciding to move into town, and the other is, and this was some time ago, with small general merchandise stores closed nationwide, and that's what we had, and they closed. And they didn't close because we didn't shop there. There's no TGNY anywhere anymore. So those two things happened at the same time, but I really believe that the lab has kind of learned its lesson in terms of the town is a crucial factor in their recruitment ability, and they know that. And I've heard from any number of people who may or may not have a say-so in it, who seem to have a say-so in it at the lab, who say that was a mistake on our part and we need to not be doing that in the future. But I do think there are things we can do as a county, either between zoning or between actually having a delegation going and saying it to them officially, look, we need not to have offices down here. Of course, we have contractors there too. Okay, thanks.
Is there another question? Where are the mics?
Right over here.
You want to hand it over there?
Well, thank you all for running. I have a two-part question, if I may. The first is, should the creation, designation, preservation of open space be part of our economic development plan? And secondly, related to that, when Rendiha Canyon gets transferred to the county, what would you like to see done or not see done with Rendiha?
On the first part of the question, the answer is yes. We should make sure that we maintain open space. We don't want seas of parking lots and asphalt. We want a community that's balanced on those things. So the answer is yes. We should be considering that as we move forward. As far as Rendiha Canyon, we sort of lost an opportunity as Councilor Wismer and Councilor Rogers pointed out at the council meeting, about having a real nice canyon front kind of businesses when we decided to go with Smith's and with that retail. So I think it's another opportunity to look at trying to do that, to have a different way of looking at what we're doing in developing that area. Because there's a lot of, it'll be a really nice area for overlook, and that's another opportunity for us to look into that.
I think our open spaces are incredibly important, and designation of open spaces is something that we're in favor of. Our open spaces are one of the things that make this community an incredibly wonderful place to live. As far as Rendia Canyon goes, I don't have any personal ideas as to what should go there. I think that's something that should be done as a community. We as a community need to have that discussion. We need to talk about, how is that area important to us? What are the sorts of things that we would like to see there? And so I think it's the responsibility of the council to lead that discussion, but more importantly, it's the responsibility of the council to listen to the community itself. So that's more a question, I think, that you need to ask all of us as a community, rather than just the council members. Thank you.
So I grew up in Boulder, and so I know a lot about, what was in the 70s when they were just starting the open space around the whole thing. And on the one hand, it's made it one of the most beautiful and desired communities on earth, and also it's one of the most expensive, and all of the retail is outside of it, and all people commute in. And so I live with those issues through my parents constantly. But I do think open space is important. We are on, 3 little mesas, and we already are surrounded by national forest, DOE land that can't be developed. So I think we have to be smart about it. We certainly should think about, are there areas that we are in control of that we want to designate as open space? And we're obviously a community that's mostly here because we love the outdoors, so it's certainly something to look at. We just need to be careful on how we do it. And with Rendia, I agree with Michael. I think this is a community thing. We need to talk about it as a community and decide as a community. Thank you.
I think that's a great question. Earlier I had spoken, I was a proponent of our economic vitality plan, and in that plan, number 3 is quality of life. And quality of life for somebody who lives in Los Alamos is you have to have space. That's why we're here. There's plenty to develop first before we would send bulldozers down to Rendia. We've got A19 and A8 to go first for the new houses that we need, the new rooftops.
I don't anticipate any development of Rendia Canyon anytime soon. Open space is an important value to us, but what I'm interested in is balance between open space and development where we need it. I think we have a lot of young people and a lot of older people who would actually rather move downtown to smaller places. That, I think, would help make our downtowns more vibrant. We could add 1,000 or 2,000 people to this community. There's 7,000 commuting to the jobs at the lab who are leaving the county every day. If the housing is available, and the key need is starter housing. The last real starter housing tract that was built here was Broadview, where I live on North Mesa. There's room there to do another one. There's certainly room downtown to do higher density housing, including live work. So there's potential for that.
One of the 3 elements that makes Los Alamos special is the natural environment that surrounds our community. And that's why, as county councilor, I voted to support initiatives to improve our trails, our parks, and our recreation facilities. And I feel that we have to continue to make investments in these areas so that mountain bikers and rock climbers and sports enthusiasts and tourists will want to come here and enjoy the beauty of this county together with us. As far as Rendia Canyon, It is a natural wonder, and I am not in favor of developing it. I think we should leave it and preserve it as it is, so that our citizens can enjoy it, and people that come here to visit us can enjoy it as well. And there's a great potential there, and the county has to be a good steward of that land and make sure that all of the cultural sites are properly registered and that it's preserved and maintained.
Yes, is it?
Yeah.
The mics?
I have a mic. So I have,
Well, could you bring it up here?
well, no, I wanted to ask a question. Then I'll make. So Pete touched on this, and I'd like to hear the other candidates' thoughts on affordable housing, because that is directly coupled to the development of retail, because those employees will not make landlord salaries, I guarantee. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on affordable housing.
Okay, there's no lights, I'm sorry. So there's a couple things. One, I think we do need more affordable housing, and typically that's either rental housing or homes that cost under $200,000 up here anyway. And there's a couple possibilities. We do have A19 as a possibility. We have other tracts of land that are coming to the county that if the county was willing to invest in some of the infrastructure, which is what would have to happen on A19, then the developers can afford to build affordable housing. And I do think we need that. On the Trinity Site Committee, I specifically asked this question because we were talking to Smiths, and there was a big worry in town that, gosh, if they have more employees, they won't have any employees. There'll be a bigger store with no one working there. And what their response was, they're not expecting all of their employees to be working here. They've dealt with other communities before where you don't have enough workforce in the community, and their answer was, we know how to deal with that. So I'm not totally sure on if they're planning on bringing buses or what they do, but in general we need it, and I'm not sure we're going to have it though for Smiths. Thanks.
Affordable housing takes a number of facets. I feel that the most immediate need is for rental units, and I believe that the property on A19 could afford opportunities to create such rental units. In addition to rental units for families to help them get started, I think we need to have amenities for our seniors. I would like to see something like the Oppenheimer Apartments be built in White Rock, using some of the land at A19. By having more amenities in White Rock, we can promote our community as a retirement area of choice. And that's one of the reasons why, as county councilor, I voted to improve and renovate our senior center in White Rock, so that we'll have a kitchen that will provide hot meals for our seniors. I think there's a real need for this kind of housing for our seniors with amenities, and that can fall under affordable housing.
Affordable housing is clearly needed, but it's not something the county can do by itself. What we can do is create conditions where developers can see a profit. That may mean we have to go ahead and put some infrastructure in, but anytime you're doing public-private arrangements, you have to be very careful. You have to get a commitment, just like we spent a lot of money on the Trinity site. We think Smiths is going to finally come in with their money. I'd like to work it a little faster and get more of a commitment up front. We definitely need it. It'll help this town, but we have to go carefully with the public's money.
So I live next door to what I think may be the last development in town that had affordable housing in it. And that's the Pinion Trails development in White Rock. And that was built on the school's property for the middle school. We were saving that patch. And what happened is all of the affordable housing lots have houses sitting on them. And there's still empty lots down there, so the developer didn't make any money. So we have to be real careful about the A19 moving forward. It's not to say that we can't do it and we can have more density of things, rentals or the smaller condo type things, units. We lived in townhouses that had affordable housing in them when we were in Maryland. So we do have to do it. We have a plan. We're part of the Santa Fe regional housing development that where this can be worked together, because we have to belong to something to go after these Section 8 vouchers.
I think affordable housing is incredibly important, particularly for people like myself, as well as some of our older citizens. Unfortunately, one of the ways affordability of housing is measured is actually based on median income. And we have an incredibly high median income here, so that sort of skews what's considered affordable housing. So some of the older so-called affordable housing developments aren't truly affordable for the people that need it to be affordable. I think there's some alternatives. We need to look at ways to, for example, incentivize perhaps a land trust or some other alternative method of making truly affordable housing. There are options out there, and it's something that we definitely need to look at.
Ken, as a county, we've seen what happened where the new municipal building is going. There used to be a lot of rentals right in there too, and they're all gone. So affordable housing to people often means, you know, a cheaper purchase per house, but as we've heard today, it also means rental, lease, other options that are affordable for people. And for those who live here, it's kind of tough to find that. So we have land transfers happening, we have opportunities now, and the county can create incentives, tax incentives, other things for developers to find a way to make money while simultaneously trying to provide those opportunities for people. So we need rental, we need it for an incoming workforce as we try to diversify. We have to think about that in the future. These things are linked. So we have some land opportunities. I think it's time to take advantage of that, incentivize developers to provide what we're looking for affordable housing for all ages and all workforce. And that's something that we owe as we move forward. It's been given a lot of promise and lip service, but now I think it's time to do it.
To be the mic. Could we bring a mic forward?
I don't know. Come on. Do you accept the science of global climate change, which indicates that in 30 to 50 years we'll be living in the desert here on our current trajectory? And if so, do you think the council should focus more attention and perhaps more funding on our currently already good sustainability program?
So there's been a lot of work going on out of our environmental department on our sustainability plan. And I think just now recently the public utilities has to add what they're doing, what their goals are going to be for electric and water. And this is all then going to come together, going to go to the sustainability board, and then we're going to get public comment and get to see it. So yes, absolutely, we need to keep pushing. You know, I think we're way ahead in recycling. We're just so lucky on this PV netto activity. Our counselors from 20 years ago or 25 years ago that pushed for the hydros, we didn't realize how smart a deal that was. And we own our own utilities so we can affect stuff right away. So I think we're on that path already, and I look forward to seeing the sustainability plan here in the future and see what other cool things we can do. There's other things in there.
We are a good community for sustainability and renewable energy. I'm proud of that. The science is there. Global warming is a reality. We need to deal with it. It's not a disaster, but there are changes coming. One of the key changes that's going to happen to New Mexico is water. A few degrees can mean a huge loss of water resources. We're very fortunate in this county to have groundwater and this San Juan project rights to water So we should certainly exercise our rights under that. And we have more water rights at the moment than we need. In the future, that may change, so we need to be careful and ready to take advantage of it.
It's a fact that the Earth's temperatures are rising. Global warming exists. To what extent human activities influence that is not clear at this point. But I would say in Los Alamos County, we have a very good program for sustainability. But I would like to see us make more investments. And one thing that comes to mind is to extend our Canyon Rim Trail so that it goes from the existing area all the way to Diamond Drive and the Medical Center, so that pedestrians and bicyclists can have a safe path to get into our downtown. And we should encourage other modes of transportation besides automobile traffic. And for this reason, this is why I've been a strong supporter of Atomic City Transit and keeping our bus service free so that all of our citizens, that our teenagers that need to get to after-school activities, and our seniors can take advantage of this service. We've made tremendous progress with our utilities in using renewable sources. 40% of the power for Los Alamos town site comes from hydroelectric power. We've got to continue along that path.
I believe that global climate change is a real and present issue that's going to affect us, particularly the younger generations, in many ways, many of which are not going to be foreseeable. So I think we really need to pursue the very admirable environmental sustainability goals of the county and expand upon them. There are a wide range of things that we can do, from alternate transportation, as Vincent mentioned, or there are things with the way we deal with stormwater that I think that we can improve our water supplies, not just the water supplies that we rely on, but those downstream of us as well. There are alternate energy systems that we can do. I would really love to see all of the capital improvement projects that are going on in town. I'd love to see them utilizing active and passive systems.
I told you I've been in leadership at Los Alamos a long time, and I've been at the Valle Caldera for the environmental session 8 times, and we've had a point counterpoint every time about global warming, about the science saying yes and the science saying no. So where do I sit on that right now? I think that there's something there. We can't ignore it. We have to analyze and see where we are with it. So it's I'm not going to say we're as far as an inconvenient truth, but we certainly are. We have something we have to deal with. The county can do a lot of things to help. I mean, citizens can do their own individual county-sponsored programs for recycling and so forth. We also, as we incentivize new business and current business, we can incentivize them to meet environmental standards, environmental quality standards, and be sustainable. We can also do that through our CIP projects. A condition of going forward on a CIP project is you're going to meet environmental sustainability goals for the county. So moving forward, we can really put a dent in those kind of things. So the answer is yes, we can really work on that.
Yes, I do think global warming is happening. I think when I heard so much on the news that maybe it's not, we're fortunate in this community, you can just be chatting with your friends who are scientists researching these things. So I randomly just spot check a few, and so far consistently everyone firmly believes. But in my own reading, I do think that that's happening, and I do think we need to be aware of it. And I do, in some ways, there's not a lot we can do to stop it just here in our town, but there's certainly ways we can do things we can do to try to make it not as bad on us as it could otherwise be. So that includes environmental sustainability, that includes keeping track of what our water rights are and utilizing them, and frankly being aware of our place within the broader community, not being aggressive about that. We're all going to be dealing with this together. And also, I think, dealing with our upcoming projects, what kinds of things can we put on them to make sure that they are more environmentally sustainable? Okay, thanks.
So, as a younger member of the community, I really want to put it to all of you, and Michael kind of said a little bit about this earlier. What can the council do to help encourage younger people to stay in the community or to join the community? Besides affordable housing, that one's you already touched, but what else could the council do?
I think one of the big issues is the lack of retail. That's a huge issue for many people, but another part of it is cultural. I'm speaking to a lot of people my age. There are things about this community that, and they're changing, but that have been lacking in the past. One of the things is the summer concert series is something that has really helped revitalize this community. And so those sorts of cultural activities, I think, in addition to affordable housing and providing good retail, is something that we can really do to help bring and keep those people. And there are things that we can do to incentivize that. One of the things is, according to the zoning in this town, it's technically illegal to have a microbrewery. You can't brew beer and serve it in the same building. So.
Okay, my feels about that one. I think there are a lot of things we can do. I mean, we talked about some retail opportunities. People like exciting retail, and we can also really invest at UNMLA to make sure that UNMLA is a place to go to school. That's a great institution. I have an associate's degree from there. In fact, Ken taught me class once. Where's Ken? Many years ago. That's attractive to younger folks. Affordable housing is going to be an important one. I know we talked about it, but it's really important. So those are a couple of things we can do. Targeting that age group, I'm assuming that's a little bit older than teen and younger than me, I guess is what you mean. Because I'm going to stay here. But anyway, those are the kind of things that I'd be thinking of. And we hear about there's not a lot to do in town for teens, teen center, but the same is true for a little bit older folks and all the way to the folks that are retired here. They like to have things to do as well. So anyway, education opportunities, more retail, recreational activities are the things that we should target.
I also think there's a fair amount of things we can do as a county government in terms of encouraging cooperation and in terms of our zoning and in terms of our planning. So absolutely we need more retail, we need a more vibrant downtown, we need a place that has more restaurants and bars. We start with that, with frankly just stopping our huge leakage off the hill. But also as we make our plans for the developers who are going to maybe be building other buildings and in partnering with people who come here, there's one right now that's coming and wants to take down some of the more decrepit parts of downtown and build something more lively that would have retail on the main level and housing up above. That's something as a county they would want us to invest 10% in. I would say that would probably be a good idea for us to revitalize the downtown along those lines. But there's lots of other things we can do. A lot of other cities have the trucks that come in on Friday in the day at lunch, and they have all kinds of very gourmet lunches, and we could coordinate that kind of thing. Right now there are those trucks in other towns and have them come up until our folks want to do it. Thanks.
The number one reason why young families want to live here in Los Alamos is the quality of our public school system. And for that reason, as county councilor, I've supported county budget initiatives that will help our public schools lessen the costs that our public schools have to bear, as well as helping UNMLA to expand their programs. But in addition to having a fine quality public education, we also need to have amenities for our young families. And that's why, as county councilor, I voted for Teen Center, I voted for a new library in White Rock, I voted for a nature center and Ashley Pond improvements so that our young families can have things to do and their children can have things to do after school and enjoy this community and this wonderful natural environment where we are. And something like a nature center celebrates the essence of this community, and that's why I support it.
So we've all said a more vibrant downtown would attract young people as well as older people. How do we get there? I talked with Peggy Durbin, the owner of Ottawa Bookstore, a few weeks ago. I told her about easing up on the sign code so that she could have had a sign out front of her bookstore so people could see she's there. She was enthusiastic about that. We've recommended to the present county council, this is something that is getting in the way of businesses surviving. So there are things, little things we have to do to make businesses survive. We've got these outdoor amenities. It's a great place to be. We need a little more business. The other thing we can do is enhance tourism. If we've got 1,000 more people coming through every month, every business here is going to benefit.
So if it's to attract and keep young families or our young people to stay, what I've seen is probably the best way that we can encourage them or entice them and incentivize them to stay is to have them go away. Because once they go away for a while, they find out how wonderful it is in the rest of the world, and then we're lucky enough that they get married and come back here, and then they're here to raise a family. And they're like my new friend over there that I'm running against county council.
Where are the mics now?
I've got one of them. My question for everybody, it sounds like it's three parts, but it isn't really. One is, I've heard economic development bandied around many times. I got 4 companies. We're trying to hire 1,000 people and bring in a lot of money. And our question is, can we afford to stay here? And the answer at the moment is no, because, to steal from Governor Romney, when you guys talk about economic development, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's not what I do every day. And that leads to subtraction, which is that, I'll be done in a couple seconds if you stop interrupting me. Subtraction means jobs and money are leaving the county and not coming in, and that's bad. And then the last piece is guts, which is, will any of you stand up to NNSA or county employees or the state to make this place successful?
Yes. I firmly believe that economic vitality and supporting small businesses that are trying to get started should be one of our top priorities. And that's why during this last budget cycle, I led an effort to restore $2 million to our budget so that we have money available so we can make grants and loans to companies that want to get started here. I think that's the best way to help create jobs in Los Alamos County. We have a research park and the Entrada Business Park, and there's great potential there to fill those areas. There are new technologies such as biofuels, algae-based biofuels. We gave $2 million grant to the New Mexico Consortium to help them get started. So that research, the cutting-edge research and the jobs that comes with it will be done in our county. And that's the kind of approach that I favor. The county has got to be an ally. The other area that we can help is to simplify our code so that a business, when it wants to expand, they know very succinctly what they need to do. So these are the areas. We have to be an ally for businesses.
The research park and activities are good, but there is a need for what my friend Rick Niebel, who has a startup company, calls an industrial slum. Low rent space, and we have very little low rent lab, office, factory space. We have land over on DP Road. We have other tracts of land coming to us. Rick has suggested get some transportables from the lab, set them up over there, call it the Los Alamos Business Trailer Park, and let the startups use it. It might be worth it. If existing landlords were willing to offer something of that kind, great. But if they're not, we can do it. That's the kind of thing the county can move in and offer an opportunity.
So, cheers, Pete. You got 2 points. You hit really 2 great ideas tonight. The first one was the signage, you know, where the county can be be a service to our businesses instead of an impediment. And then the other one was this great idea. We're going to have, as soon as we get the big building done, we're going to have trailers that we can turn into this boat ramp. And we're going to have an area for this too, because eventually we're going to get the DP 21 site when we get that all cleaned up. The only other thing I was thinking maybe to add to this is maybe it's time for us to be serious about a local preference ordinance and make it easier for some of our local builders. I mean, it's been very quiet around here building for a while, and we might have to do something here to help get that all fired up again with our local builders. It used to be vibrant local builders.
I think that in terms of economic development, we do have a lot of potential with spin-offs from the lab. Tech transfer seems like the most obvious thing that ought to be happening here. I think there's a couple of number of reasons why they don't. One is, I'm getting some funny looks, maybe I'm crazy about this, but I think, gee whiz, it seems like that's a good idea, but it could be that the types of people who want to be entrepreneurs are not the ones who are going to leave the lab, but it's their technology that might be leaving and could potentially be being worked on here. I do think there's a good possibility to have some kinds of grants once in a while for some small businesses to start up here if we really believe that there's something they're going to be hiring on and bringing in a lot of people here. I do think, again, because you're using public money, we have to be pretty careful with that. There are VCs, and why couldn't we partner with others of those around New Mexico to have them come up and see the benefit of investing in our companies up here? So yeah, I think we do need to think about it, but there's lots to look into. Thank you.
Eric, you and I have talked about this a bunch in passing at many a Gordon's concert series. I really believe that we need, if we're going to have diversification of, especially our technology, which is like what you're talking about, the county needs to provide incentives for that to be here. And even when they do come, they, as Eric was pointing out, they eventually leave for a number of reasons. There's not enough infrastructure for them, there's not enough things for them to do when they're here. It's hard to attract people to come work and stay here. So those are things as a county that we can incentivize. So we can, if somebody wants to develop a property, we can incentivize them to have preferential treatment, local notions. We can be connected to tech transfer. We can find a partnership with a laboratory to allow that to happen. There are a lot of people that go on entrepreneurial leave and try to start something in Los Alamos. We can incentivize that to be successful. So as far as having the guts to stand up with MNSA, that's a tough question. But the answer is, in my case, I have a good relationship with most at Lasso, the ones that I know, including a working relationship with Kevin Smith when we have had a chance to work together. So in the county, we would work together on those things.
I know that when you talk about economic vitality, that's sort of an ambiguous thing. From my standpoint, given my background in planning, the best thing that I can think of to improve economic vitality in this town is to update the zoning codes. They're outdated, don't necessarily help small businesses in many ways, they hinder them. Like the example I gave for it being illegal for there to be a microbrewery. There are many other examples of similar issues, and I think that's what I can bring to the council as far as improving the economic vitality. As for standing up to other groups, I believe that it is the job of the council to stand up for the county. And you have to look after the interests of the county first. And that's what I plan to do if elected. Thank you.
Could you have a mic up here, please?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just talking to the antenna.
Can you hear me? Yeah. We live in a one-company town. Is our county in good financial condition? And what ought it be doing to prepare to deal with the possibility of years of downsizing of our one-company town?
To Kristen. So, I'll start my 2 minutes over. Anyway, the first thing I'll say is I didn't get to say in the last one. Who remembers when this town had LATA, EG&G, and had companies like that when they used to be here? Remember that when Craig was here? So we can have other companies here if we do it right. So that's the first thing I'll say. So we do have what I've called the 800-pound gorilla across the bridge that we have to have a focus on. And our economic development activities that's a prime goal. But what I'll say, George, is that we need to work together with Los Alamos to understand what's coming in the future, because as Los Alamos changes, it impacts the county tremendously, including home values and all the things we want to do. If Llano dips by just a little bit, it can cause a lot of problems. So for us to be successful, George, we need to be partnering with them into the future and be able to predict with them what's going to go on. I know things in Washington can be unsettling, but as best we can, we need to be predicted. Do we have a big GRT revenue stream? Yeah. Is it going to get smaller? Yes. So we just need to be able and agile to adjust to that.
I think it's hard when it's a one-horse town, but it is what it is. I think that I've been doing a lot of these little meetings where I try to meet a lot of people, and I had someone there who told me he's working on the 50-year plan for the lab. So I don't feel like it's imminently greatly going away. Obviously, it has its ups and downs, and frankly, an interesting thing about the last two voluntary separations, I know from studying the numbers at RE/MAX, in fact, it doesn't lower our housing prices. Our main lowered housing price, we did have it with the fear of the drop, but then it was really the 2008 financial crash that dropped our prices. They did drop 20%, but with the second VSP, they didn't even drop because statistically we don't move away when we retire, we stay. In fact, what it does is it tightens up the real estate market. But nonetheless, we do have to plan ahead in terms of not overspending and not overplanning for more people. If the lab is going to be cutting back, we don't want to be spending the GRT money that we're not having. So we certainly have to be cautious about that and thoughtful about that as we plan ahead.
Yes, we are currently flush with money. Well, not quite flush, but the county has a lot of money at the moment. Is it a risk that most of that money comes because of the lab? And yes, so I think one of the things that we need to really look at is diversification. Diversification of our economy as a whole, looking at other businesses other than just the lab. But also, I think we need to lobby for diversification of the mission of the lab. It's something, I think the expertise that we have there can be used in a wide variety of ways. And if we diversify that mission, I think we can help strengthen the lab's position as far as remaining a strong economic driver in our community. Given that, though, I think one of the most important things we can do as a community is to diversify the other kinds of businesses that we have here.
Yes, yes, the county finances are solvent. They're probably the strongest they've been ever. I remember when we had no CIP money, and we could barely provide some of the services. Everything was volunteers for parks and recreation. So compared to that, yes, we have a lot more resources. Back then, it was a one-company town also. Okay, so it's been a one-company town since 1943, since it's been opened up. The wonderful thing about the laboratory is it does some unique national security capabilities that do not happen anywhere else in the world. So there is some kernel of things that will always have the need here. And I'm looking forward to not too far off in the future where we're going to be able to start hiring again, and hiring with a vengeance as we go through a demographic change at the lab.
There are a lot of small towns in Colorado, in the mountains of Colorado, that don't have the $2 billion payroll we have, and yet have vibrant downtowns, are fun places to live. I mentioned we have a lot of things to offer similar to that. We could get more tourists coming up here. I'm not saying make us into Vail, but a stream of tourists enjoying the things we have will help our downtown. We have spin-off of the lab. We got a lot of talented people. People like myself who took early retirement, we're interested in startup companies and new technologies. So we need to diversify. We can help our local economy with tourism. But underlying it all, if we face big budget cuts, we have to look at priorities, have a clear consensus, and the most important things get done, the rest wait.
I don't subscribe to the philosophy that if we have the money, we should spend it. I think the most important job of a county councilor is to hold the line on county spending and hold the line on our budget items. That's why when the budget for the visitor center in White Rock was proposed to be increased by $1 million, I voted against it. We need to stay within our budgets. Having a smarter, more efficient government doesn't necessarily mean having a larger county government. I think we've got to control the size of our county government. And finally, we've got to recognize that the health of our county is intimately tied with the health of the laboratory. And the worst thing we can do right now is contemplate raising the GRT tax rate, because that will hurt the laboratory, and that, I believe, will cost us jobs. And I don't want to see that happen, and I'm opposed to that.
Okay, it's time, I'm sorry, there's not time for more questions. We have a round of questions. It's time for closing statements now. Each candidate gets 1 minute. We'll begin with Mr. Clerk.
So, I remember 30 years ago when it was all volunteer. I'm the only candidate from White Rock. My day job is to listen. I listen to trade studies, cost benefits, capability impacts, but then I have to decide, and then I have to execute. And then I have to figure out what this take the battery out. We all want to support the schools. I've just finished a 4-year term on the school board. I think I understand the school finances. I understand the difference between operating and the capital issues. We have capital issues. Okay? Well, we have issues on both sides. We can't chase the lab out because they're renting school properties. That's the best income we have. So we have to be very careful swinging these swords because they have two edges. And in closing, I probably just want to say that I'm an engineer by trade with limited analysis capacity. 90%, then I have to move on and do something.
People are concerned about getting good value for all the money the county spends, about how we could make our town more inviting to everyone, from single people to families with children to retired people. We need to focus on communication, prioritization, fiscal responsibility, and sustainability. Communication is just talking and listening to people about the issues and choices we have. That's how we will develop consistent priorities. I think we have priorities pretty clear: public safety, infrastructure, education, and economic development. If we manage these things well, then we'll be able to afford to further develop our recreational amenities. Fiscal responsibility and sustainability are just using all our resources wisely. We can afford all the important things for our community as long as we prioritize. Thank you.
My approach to county government is one that emphasizes principles above politics. I'm not afraid to be in the minority position when the minority position is the right position for our citizens. And that's why, as county councilor, I refused to dismiss the LAGRI petition that was signed by 2,000 citizens, even though there was a legal controversy. Because I feel that the county council should abide by the charter and allow the vote and let the courts decide what's legal. When the council imposed an unfair contract on our firefighters, I stood with our firefighters. So I'm not afraid to cross party lines and do the right thing. Now more than ever, we need a county councilor who's going to be an independent thinker and is going to work with everyone on the council to achieve our goals. I'm running again for re-election so that we can put working people and families first. And I ask for your vote on November 6th, so I can serve another term as your county councilor, and together we can put principles ahead of politics.
So I've heard that it's hard to distinguish between the six of us, and I'm going to try to make a little distinguishment for myself, despite the, in addition to the obvious. So one is that I am literally running on saying these positions are at large. The councilors need to take into account everybody who's in town, not just the people who show up, they absolutely need to be heard, but all of us, even those who can't. So those who'd like some progress in town and the families in town. Secondly, I am an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur, and I've worked at those kind of companies in the past, and I can help bring that kind of understanding to council. Third, I have a wonderful understanding of our real estate needs in depth. We can come up with lots of nice solutions, I think, that can help. And fourth, with a law degree, I'm a highly analytical person. In most jobs I've had to listen to a wide variety of people who don't get along and try to figure out where the commonality is and find the best ways to move forward. And that's the kind of perspective that I would bring to council. And there it is. Thank you very much. I ask for your vote November 6th.
I want to help move Los Alamos forward. I have the credential and the leadership ability to do that. I will promise you that when elected, I won't stop campaigning. I will still solicit the input of everyone in the town for whatever we do as we move forward. It won't stop the day that all the ballots are in. I'm committed to helping the schools. And all kind of creative activities to help that move forward. I mentioned I want economic vitality in this town to keep everybody happy. And we all want to live and we want to stay here and have an exciting place to live. All of my life and all of my decisions will be based on a strong set of core values which we all hold dear. And that's something I can promise all of you on a daily basis. That will be a guiding principle for me. And representing all of you. And as a taxpayer myself, I pay taxes too, and I share in that, and I have to be a good steward of your dollars no matter what we decide, as we all decide together. So I look forward to your vote on November 6th, and please look at my new website, fightercouncil.com. This came up yesterday. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I believe that the job of the county councilor is to represent the county, and since it is an elected position, elected at large, you have to represent the county as a whole. And I'm committed to doing just that. To differentiate myself a little bit, as Kristen hinted that I guess we need to do, I feel that, given the fact that we are currently flush with cash, I would rather see us invest that money wisely in infrastructure that will help pay off in the future, that will give us benefits later on down the line, rather than letting that money sit in a bank account where someone like Bernie Madoff can run away with it. I understand the importance of having a reserve of cash. I don't want to spend it all at once, but I believe it's really important to look very closely at the sorts of things that will help this community into the future. Thank you.
Okay, can we give the candidates a big hand? Thank you all very much. It's been a great audience, and don't forget to vote.